Good morning, everyone. It is good to see you all again. Let's see if I can get down here without killing myself. Got a really great question from someone via email that I thought I would turn into a video. And the question is, how on long trips, on week-long, on month-long trips, do I keep all my batteries charged? It is a great question that I do pretty simply, but you could definitely scale it up. Let's talk about it. Okay, so the first question is, what am I charging? And I'm charging GoPro batteries for 2 cameras. I sometimes have a 360 camera. I sometimes have a drone. I'm charging sometimes a phone. I had to charge my phone at Assateague. That's not that common, but sometimes my phone. VHF radio. That's about it. Oh, GPS. I've got a couple of other devices that are, at the moment, by choice, AA batteries. That's probably changing, but at the moment, AA batteries. So let's talk some specifics. Okay, by far, GoPros are the easiest. The batteries are relatively inexpensive, 18 or 20 bucks a piece. I use about half GoPro, half aftermarket. The aftermarkets tend to be a little cheaper, but these are easy enough for like a week-long trip, or maybe even longer. When I did the Inside Passage, I had 2 cameras with me, but one camera was just for backup. And the primary camera, I ran a lot of the day and brought 10 batteries with me. There were a couple times we stopped where I would recharge batteries, like where I had access to a wall outlet, I would charge batteries. But that was how I did that. So that is super simple. You can just bring a bunch of batteries. That worked for me in 2011. 2014, when I went back with some friends, then we had to scale it up because we had way more cameras. As I said, I'm running 2 GoPros on my daily, like when I put a boat in the water, I'm running 2 GoPros. Oh, I was going to do a video about how I shoot my stuff. If you're interested in that, leave a comment down below and I'll turn that into a video. It felt like the power aspect of how I shoot my stuff was a little bit more broad appeal. So 2 GoPro cameras, an Insta360, and a drone are the most I would be bringing with me on a multi-day. It's what I brought to Cape Lookout with me. And the Insta360 camera, which I use sparingly, that battery will generally last through an entire trip, but I'm using a lot of GoPro power. So I'm going to charge those batteries up at night while I'm sleeping. And so your question is how? And I've got a couple of answers. Okay, before we can get into how I charge them, you need to do a little bit of math, a little bit of thinking. These GoPro batteries, actually all lithium-ion batteries, on the back of them will have a rating in milliamp hours. Sometimes it'll be watt hours and milliamp hours, but for batteries this small, milliamp hours actually works best for us. Okay, so this is a 1720 milliamp hour battery. For comparison, my drone battery is a 3500 milliamp hour battery. I don't know the Insta360 off the top of my head, but it's bigger than this guy, but not as big as their own. So that's the first thing is, so 1720 milliamp hours, keep that in your head, because my sort of best method for keeping batteries charged is just to bring in another battery with me. This is a Goal Zero Flip 10. I think now the same size as a Flip 24. These are just straight up USB battery sticks, and they're pretty tiny. And it's not normally the one I bring, but I'm just going to use it to illustrate a point. Okay, so this Flip 10 is 2600 milliamp hours versus 1720 milliamp hours. So I can charge about 1.5 of these from one of these. That's not going to do me very good, though. I generally throw the Flip 10 in my bag for charging my phone or something like that. Bang for buck, this is relatively inexpensive, and it's only going to get me 1.5. I might as well just bring 2 batteries. But I think you see what's going on here. This is a Goal Zero Flip 36, which has a 10,050 milliamp hour battery in it. And it's the same thing. I'm just going to plug in either the camera or a charging station to charge GoPro batteries. And I can charge not quite 6 GoPro batteries out of this. So if I'm packing in 6 and I can charge 6 more from this, it's really like 5.8 more. That's almost doubling the numbers of these batteries, and that starts working out really well. That'll get me through probably 10 days of shooting. But then there's this guy. This is the Goal Zero Venture 75. This is my workhorse. This is 19,200 milliamp hours. It's also water resistant, which none of the others are. This will charge 11 GoPro batteries. Now we're talking. Now I can pack in, 4 or 5 batteries and charge them each once additionally. I mean, in theory, I could pack in 1 battery and just charge it every night. Either way. This is good bang for your buck. This is about 120 bucks, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger still. The problem is the drone is really the problem. So the drone battery is big, but not huge, 3,500 milliamp hours. I could charge that a bunch of times from this, except the charger that I have for my drone will only work plugged into a wall socket. I'm sure they make a USB charger for it, but I don't have it. And that means I need something with an AC inverter, which is why I have this. This is a very old, like circa 2014, Goal Zero Sherpa 50 with a 5,200 milliamp hour battery. So the battery in this is half the size of the battery in this. And that is just how much technology has changed with these things in not quite a decade. So absolutely incredible. So why do I still have this floating around? I had 2 of these that I brought when I went back to Alaska in 2014. This one is special. This one has an AC inverter, and that will charge my drone. But it'll only charge my drone 1 and about 1/3 times, and it's big and heavy. I really try and minimize my drone usage for a lot of reasons, but that is one of them. I'm not going to do drone shots every day. I'm going to do just a handful of drone shots. Here I get about 25 minutes of flight time. Hopefully the battery will get me through an entire trip. It's something that I hope to do more of in the future, is to bring the drone, but I'm really leery about sort of where I use the drone for a lot of reasons. So those are the easy ones. The GoPro is easy. The drone is workable. Those are the easy ones. The Insta360 is pretty easy. Let's talk about the hard ones. Okay, so problem number 1 is my VHF radio. My VHF is pretty old. I bought it in 2009 or 10 for the Inside Passage. And when I bought it, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to recharge it while I was paddling, or at least had to be prepared to not recharge it while I was paddling. And so it has 2 batteries that can go into the back of that unit. One of them is a rechargeable lithium ion. The other will take AA's. And so my plan was, I'll use the rechargeable and then I can just start feeding it AA batteries. As I said, it's pretty old. I looked this morning to see sort of the type of radio that I am looking to replace it with will charge via USB-C. So it will slide into this system pretty well. And the battery size is actually about 1,700 milliamp hours. And so it'll work in this system pretty well. So that's relatively easy. My new GPS, which I did a review of a few months ago, I'll put a link to that up here. One of the things I forgot to mention about that, I love that unit, but this is infuriating. It is not a USB-C plug. And that's because the form factor of the unit itself is too old for it to really be USB-C. I think it was released originally in 2019. It's a weirdly shaped version of USB, like micro USB or something like that, which means I can charge it in this ecosystem, but I need to bring its own cable, which is infuriating that I can't use USB-C. Everything else is USB-C. Absolutely infuriating, Garmin, please change that. The last thing that I sort of deal with is headlamps. I should say I go through a headlamp every year to 18 months, I really like doing sunrise departures on my last day of paddling. I really love that. Get up quick, break camp, don't make coffee, don't make breakfast, get in the boat, do your final paddle. Hitting the water as the sun is coming up is one of my absolute favorite things. But that means I'm loading the boat and maybe even starting paddling with a headlamp on. And that means that I'm going to take it off and probably put it down on my spray skirt in front of me. And I've done this 2 or 3 times. You do 3 paddle strokes and somehow it ends up in the water. And it doesn't float, but it happens quickly. You can grab it and it's waterproof, so it's not the end of the world, except that it's the end of the world because it kills them. So about every 18 months, maybe 2 years if I'm lucky, I replace headlamps. And the headlamp that I really like is the Black Diamond Storm. There is now a rechargeable version of it that is the same IPX rating as the AA, actually I think it's AAA battery, as the AAA battery version, but it is significantly more expensive. I think it's $25 or $24 more. And I wasn't prepared the last time I bought a headlamp, which was not that long ago, to make that switch. I think my next one will be a rechargeable, assuming it charges via USB-C. Okay, so now your next question is, why don't you use solar? Okay, I love solar. I use solar to power the van. I would love to use solar in the backcountry, but it doesn't really work for me. And here's why. In 2014, we used solar in Alaska. That was a month-long trip, or planned as a month-long trip. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. Another thing that happens when we have sun is solar panels come out immediately. And that's to charge all the stuff that we're using to make the film, all the camera batteries and stuff like that. And so those will be out as long as we've got sun. And if it's sunny, the sun is out late here. Sunset's generally around 11 o'clock. In order for solar to be really effective, your ratio of panel size to battery size has to be big. You have to have a very big panel for a smaller battery. And that's how that works so well. Where is my van? That's how that works so well, is that I have an oversized panel for the battery that runs the van. And so it charges super quick. The panels we had in Alaska were physically bigger, but just did not produce enough power. Paired with bad weather, paired with, you really got to pay attention with those smaller panels in terms of angle to the sun. It's really got to be angled perfectly to get the maximum amount. So on rest days, we would use those, but like every 15 minutes, we would be tweaking the panel position to get the most power. We would be swapping out batteries once they charge. You really have to stay on top of it, and it takes all day long. So it was something we could do on rest days, but it doesn't really work if you're just paddling. So I'm waiting for like next generation in paddle. I need a panel that packs well, that folds well, that's water resistant, that I can like mount to the hard deck of my boat and be charging batteries throughout the day. And that's a lot of things going on. So solar I'm not really using right now. I sold all of my older panels. So we're not there now. At the moment, I'm sticking with batteries. Now, you could totally scale this up and make this work for bigger things. If you're running bigger cameras or things like that, you just need to be carrying bigger batteries. But think about it. If you're carrying bigger batteries, right, you've got to be able to charge those. And if you want to do that via solar, think about how big your panel would need to be. So that's how I do it, and it's pretty straightforward. And I'll tell you, I did a 36-day sailing trip with Knowles in Baja where I didn't run solar and I didn't have the ability to charge anything. And just using this system, that was the Venture 75 and the Flip 30, I managed to keep batteries going for that entire trip. And I was running 2 cameras, a GoPro and a DJI. And so you can make this system work for long trips. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be that hard. Okay. Thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, hit like and hit subscribe. My books are available on Amazon. My books are available in digital form for less money on Ko-fi. Links are down below. Simple Guide to Kayaking, Simple Guide to Kayak Camping, and the Guides Ways, which I really love. I'm super happy with. Tips and tricks from 30 years working in the outdoors. Check those out. Otherwise, I'll see you on the water. We are pretty far up College Fjord. It rained all the way. It's still raining. It's really cold. Camera's shaking because I'm shivering.